Hi everyone, welcome back to the third video. Today is going to be quite a deep topic, and I've done this video a few times trying to find out exactly where I should begin. I'll probably have to go back in time and then bring it to the modern day so I can at least explain my thoughts and explain the current situation in the United Kingdom, because despite the recent issues have been popularized online, specifically with Elon Musk talking about the R gangs, and obviously the recent inquiries and Rupert Lowe being able to raise all the money, it has come to the forefront and it has entered the news cycle because for a time they did want to brush away things like the R gangs and brush away many of the issues that the United Kingdom is facing. Across the world, when you speak to people in Asia or the Middle East, they still hold England or the United Kingdom in high regard. They still think it's a fantastic place of law and order. It's clean, it's friendly, and it's a place to make money. But little do they know, all of those things are crumbling away and essentially rotting from the inside out. So before, when we had an external enemy or a battle, or the Spanish Armada or the Nazis, there was some kind of identifiable force that was coming from the outside, and we would get together. We would be in a national spirit and basically defeat the enemy. But now the enemy is in within. The enemy is in Parliament. It's in our institutions, and they're all captivated by a very sick ideology, which basically puts the priorities and the national interest at the bottom for every single citizen, and then puts a globalist ideology at the forefront. And we make all of our policies and all of our decisions based on globalism as opposed to the national interest of the United Kingdom. So that is the main issue. If we just look at the last 3 or 4 decades, we've been involved in multiple wars, which none of us really wanted to go into. We've been part of NATO, which has basically destroyed Libya and various other countries in the Middle East and Northern Africa, which has created a great amount of instability, political instability, economic instability, regional instability. And those, some of them are refugees, and I would say a large majority now are economic migrants. Specifically, if you're coming from France, I believe you no longer are a refugee. You're no longer escaping a war. You're simply just switching countries based on what you want. So the fact that we still actually call them refugees is an absolute farce. I mean, they need to be rebranded, and the conventions and the European Court of Human Rights need to adjust the definition. And they flood into England, and it's caused a massive amount of instability within the country. When people see that there has been generations of people that have paid into the system and have been part of the United Kingdom, and they're at the bottom of the list for social services and access to, public health and education. And then someone that has literally just arrived in on a boat basically gets everything and gets on-site NHS appointments. They get 3 square meals a day, and they get a nice warm room. It really sows a deep resentment and discontent for not only the migrants, but for the politicians as well. And it's a game of divide and conquer, where they want us to hate each other, and they want us to be so disillusioned and so confused with basically everything that's going on that we turn into like an apathetic mode where we give up. Little do they know, the British spirit will not die, and the attempts to replace us, which is exactly what is happening, even though every time this topic is brought up online, it's called a conspiracy. It is not. It is an intentional policy to replace the native English. That is simply what it is. Every single thing that they do is in the sight of removing the native British population. So it's akin to a genocide. Now, I've argued with lefties and liberals about this, and they say it doesn't matter as long as those people are still culturally identified and they still hold the British values, then what does it matter? Well, it matters because for 1,000 years, the English people have existed on these islands. Okay, let's not forget, we're an admixture. of Anglo-Saxon, about 30-40%, Norman, obviously we had the Norman invasion 1066, and we intermix a lot with the Normans, Vikings and Romans, and so on and so forth. So we're an amalgamation of the native people to the Isles. You can go back to the Beakers and this, that, and the other, and local invading forces. And it's been like that for about 1,000 years. Our language reflects that, our culture reflects that, our tradition, our history is all reflecting that these are the native people of the land. Now, I was, when I read about Native American history, I was really upset with that because it's something contemporary, it's something recent. I was really upset with that. Basically replacing a people in their own land systematically by force, by killing, by disease, by the R word, pushing them onto plantations, pushing them onto reservations, and then ultimately taking over their whole country. And I see the same thing happening to the United Kingdom. I see the same thing happening in France. I see the same thing happening in Germany. It's the first time in the world a country has decided to colonize itself. So instead of going to another country and taking over the institutions and building infrastructure and making everything in your favor as an empire, it's now the reverse. And you see the comments online, they always like to stick that in your face. Well, you colonized us, now we're colonizing you, which is the automatic response, or it's the way they taunt the English people. Is that, well, now here's a taste of your own medicine. But this is not an external colonizing force. These are people that have opened up the gates. These are internal traitors that have opened up the gates and are intentionally trying to allow the great replacement, essentially. Now you might ask, well, why? Why would they want to do that? And there's some very powerful forces out there that have an idea of the global citizen. It's a homogenized global citizen where ethnically they are a mix of everything. They're kind of like a coffee-covered people, and they don't have any deep ties. They don't have any deep cultural roots to a certain place or a certain time. And these people would be less resistant to global modes of governance, global economic models, because they would only see themselves as a citizen of Earth as opposed to a citizen of a country. And these globalists are multi-billionaires, and they hold high power in corporations, and they hold power in the World Economic Forum. And Trudeau, Macron, and all these people, they were part of the Young World Leaders educational program, which basically shows them how they should be running their country. And it's being run in a way that favors the globalists at the disfavor of the local native populations. They always try to push these ideas about inclusivity and diversity and multiculturalism. And if you push back against that, you're now a dissenter. You're now classified as far right. If you believe in the nuclear family, if you believe in traditional religion, if you believe in community, your country, your flag, in the UK, this is now far right. This is now a fringe view, which is deplorable, because you even see it in Parliament when, Rupert Lowe talks about these things, the disgust they have on their faces when you dare to ever talk about England as a nation state and the British people that should have their interests at the top of the list, not at the bottom. So yeah, it's not just about inclusivity. It's not about justice for the minorities. It's about who gets to define reality and who gets to benefit from shaping the collective consciousness. So instead of that being in the hands of the English and them deciding their own future, it's now in the hands of people that perpetrate this woke ideology. So it's all about power and control over cultural narratives. And they always try to push the question upon us, well, what is Englishness anyway? What is Britishness? Oh, it's the British values, which now have been supplanted by globalist values. But what is Englishness is it's a national identity. It's shared it's a shared history. It's our values, it's our traditions, it's our culture that we share with one another. Okay, we've been through world wars. We have small cultural iterations. I'm a Yorkshireman. I'm a London boy. I'm a Scotsman. This is who you are, and these are what it means to be British. So In my estimation, right now, England or the United Kingdom is technically an authoritarian dictatorship. We arrest more people per day for social media posts than China and Russia combined. We have an extreme policing over language. So now it seems what you say is actually more important than what you do. So you can loot the shops, you can steal stuff, you can rape people, you can do X, Y, Z. You know, 1% of the phone thefts are dealt with, 1% of the burglaries are dealt with. But if you dare say something, if you dare say something against the hotels, if you dare, then wow, the whole legal system suddenly perks up. It's working really well, and they're gonna get you arrested. We have the state institutional cover up of, again, the the mass R's, the mass rapes. We have the flooding of the land with mass migration, and political dissenters are treated worse than the average criminal. So if you're someone like Tommy Robinson, if you're someone online that has said something against the status quo, then there is a different tier of justice for you than the average criminal. Which gets onto the point of two-tier justice. I think we have about 3 or 4 tiers. It's not, we have one tier for bankers. We have one tier for the average white English person. We have one tier for the Islamic R gangs. We have another tier for politicians. So the amount of corruption that's happened in the COVID time, and even recently, like the most recent with the Rishi Sunak, where his side men were making bets on. I mean, how is that? And they all just get away with it. Matt Hancock was giving his contracts away to his pub owner. All the expenditure that they do. The HSBC scandal, where basically HSBC was turning a blind eye to terrorist financing and money laundering. And George Osborne and Peter Mandelson were also part of it. Even George Osborne was the executor, Treasury executor at the time, and nothing happened, not even a fine. HSBC did get a fine, but when you take that into consideration of their yearly profits, it's essentially a slap on the wrist. The 2008 financial crisis, bank executives that were basically responsible for the collapse avoided prosecution. There wasn't an investigation. So there's about 4 tiers. And I think that those 4 tiers exist in most countries. If you're a politician, if you're part of the establishment, you get away with it. If you're just the native Brit, you're going to feel the full force of the law. The other UK examples is Jimmy Savile and Hugh Edwards. Basically got away with it. The UK as well has this issue. Again, I didn't want to make this video too long, but it is what it is. There's so many issues to get through. We were once an industrial nation, and we have specifically attempted to deindustrialize. We just had our last steel plant closed down, which, would you know, was owned by China anyway. Now Keir Starmer's talking about making British steel. Let's see what happens with that. I actually am generally in favor of renationalizing many of our services. But we've had all these fantastic mining towns or brick production or even leather production. There's a town called Yeovil, and in Yeovil, I think at one point in the 19th century, it was about 70 or 80% of the world's leather was actually coming from this one small English town. It was idolized, it's the kind of the gold standard of leather around the world. And now we don't produce anything. We've just basically shipped everything out to China and Taiwan and Vietnam and and Bangladesh, all these places with zero workers' rights. Everything gets done on the cheap, no chance to unionize, super cheap wages, and then sell everything in pounds. Like, it's a massive con, it's a massive scam. And that's not just happening in the United Kingdom. That's also happening in France and Germany. So Germany closed down all their coal mines and this, that, and the other, and now everyone is dependent on Russian energy. So once we've ripped out those factories and those manufacturing plants from these towns, they haven't correctly replaced it with the right infrastructure or the right methods to make sure that there's going to be jobs there. So apparently we were all supposed to move into office jobs. We were all supposed to be this administrative class. We were supposed to be a managerial class. We were going to move into finance, science, medicine. But those northern towns have not come from that cultural background to suddenly shift into office work. Some of them do. Some of them enjoy it. But there's a generation of young men that would prefer skilled labor or working with their hands, and they don't have the opportunity to do that now. So In the void that was left in these towns has now been replaced with Ladbrokes. It's been replaced with Tesco. It's been replaced with homelessness, alcoholism. And anyone that goes to their local high street in these towns can clearly see that that's the case. These places have been abandoned. Nothing has filled the gap. We have other economic factors to consider, the COVID and the fact that our energy prices are super high and the war in Ukraine, which has also just made it super impossible for the local person in a small town to start making money or find a job. With that being said, we're super focused on GDP. I personally don't give a shit about GDP. GDP per capita is obviously more important, but GDP is just a nice little number on a piece of paper somewhere at the Treasury, which basically tells everyone that everything is okay because they've just imported a bunch of people, which apparently are going to be spending all this money, and that's going to be pumping up the GDP. So it's just a made up thing. It's just a number on a piece of paper, essentially. Where is the evidence of this GDP? Because no one can fucking see it. No one can see the evidence of this GDP. I mean, oh wow, 55 G7 and the largest fifth economy in the world. All right, but most people are broke. Most people don't have money. Most people can't pay the bills. Most people are one paycheck away from just being homeless. I mean, I would prefer to have less GDP and have a focus and concentration on people's well-being, which links back to purpose, which links back to having producing something you're proud of, collective responsibility, things like that. But we're not. We're fully focused on GDP. So I'd prefer GDP to go down, but when we're outside and we're walking on the street, people have a smile on their face. People are happy. People are not resorting to alcohol and taking drugs because they're really depressed with the situation that they're in. The new statistic came out the other day that the United Kingdom is the second most miserable country in the world. And I'm not surprised after all the things I've just told you. You're not going to be living in that society and be happy. You're going to be super, super depressed. It is a depressing situation. There's been a massive demoralization campaign. Again, I say it's all about demoralizing the public. It's all about making you feel sad and low. It's all about just replacing, mixing, and getting you onto that low level where you can no longer escape and become free. Where is the terrorist attacks in Poland? Where is the terrorist attacks in Hungary? Now, I'm sure the Polish government and the Hungarian government and Viktor Orban, I'm sure they have their own levels of corruption. I'm sure that they do things as well, which behind closed doors, pocketing money, just like the rest of them. But at least the robber barons are not allowing uncontrolled, unfettered amount of people to come into their lands and basically do what the hell they like some kind of invading warlord tribe. They don't. They close the borders. They're super tight on immigration, who they let in, and now they're feeling the effects of it. People are going to Poland and say, oh my God, this is like heaven. People are going to Budapest and saying this is amazing. When the whole thing kicked off between Israel and Palestine, Jews can freely walk around Budapest as they like. Jews can freely walk around Poland as they like. Why couldn't they walk around London on certain days of the week? Or they felt intimidated, or they felt scared. Why not? Because we've let in a bunch of people that support those regimes, that support that political stance. The last thing I'll say about the issues that we face, I feel like I've gone through a fair bit, is the amount of money that the government spends. So for every pound that is collected in tax, the government is spending about 50p on government expenditure. So we've over bloated. We've gone way too high on the expenses. We don't need that much stuff to be spent on the civil service and the quangos and this, that, and the other. In the Soviet Union, it was about 70%. 70% of that was collected in tax was spent on just bureaucracy, and we're at 50. So we're getting close to Soviet Union levels. So we need a Doge-style system, which basically gets a team of people together, analyzes all the bullshit that we're spending money on, and just stop. We're not an empire anymore. It's not the British Empire. We can't afford to give Ethiopia 500 million for farming. We can't afford to give Pakistan 200 million for some random thing. There's a lot of decrepit and broken towns around the UK, which I just stated, which probably could do with about 500 million. The 18 million pound a day that we're spending on our hotels We need that spent on our local towns and cities as well. We need about 18 million pound a day on all the broken towns. We need people to be proud of their environment and their local community once more, not just walking around basically a dystopian hellscape, because that's what it is. And I've been around plenty of countries around the world, countries that you would say are third world. They look better than us now. There's plenty of countries in the world that look way better than us, safer than us. You can walk the streets at night. You can walk around with a nice watch on. I'm not even talking about Dubai and all the obvious ones. There's generally countries around developing economies that are doing much, much, much better than the UK, and the people are happier there. Yes, every country comes with its own set of issues, but people are generally happy and they can walk the streets at night and feel safe. And their government is not actively covering up the mass R of their own children. So I've talked about all the issues. And on these videos, 'cause I watch videos like this on YouTube as well, people want to know, well, what's the solution? First of all, we need to break the LabCon uni party because they've been at the helm of all of this destruction. Whether it's Reform, whether it's someone else, forget the Liberal Democrats. The only people that can be right now is Reform. Okay, that is just it. Despite what they've done to Rupert Lowe, despite they may actually get into power and just be centrists, at the end of the day, it's just one domino that's fallen. It's just one brick that's been removed. It's just one Jenga from the massive tower that all needs to come down. Um, we need like a Doge style task force team, which basically removes all of this shitty government spending, so we actually have money for our own people in our own country. The third thing is obviously we need to absolutely forget this. What was it, net zero migration? Forget that. We just need to close the borders. We can't let any more people in. Like the people that we have is already enough, and for the services that we have, it's overbloated. Like we just can't bring more people in. I spoke about this in the previous video. We don't have the infrastructure. All the illegals need to be deported, and any first generation migrant that's come in, has committed a crime, and is sitting in a jail somewhere at the taxpayer's expense, they all need to be deported. So I think if you get rid of those 3, 4 things, it's a really great start. We obviously have massive issues as well with the woke ideology stuff, and our educational institutions brainwashing children into various crap, indoctrinating them with crap. But that is a good start. After that, you would have to go to war with the wokey judges because they've all been subverted. They've all been captured. They're now fully, they don't work in the British interest anymore. When you hear all these judges, oh, the chicken nuggets, oh, the guy would be stressed, oh, rapist gets let free because, he was sad. They all need to go. All those people need to be identified and they need to be physically removed from positions of power. And the people that come in next need to be vetted. That you got no conflict of interest, you're not being paid by anyone, check the bank records because it's life or death. It's the future of our country is now completely on the brink unless we do these things. Once you get rid of the wokey judges, every single quango, unless they can actually report to you and tell you exactly what they've done, they just need to go. The power needs to be back in Parliament because we vote for democratic representatives in Parliament. But then suddenly, if they try to do something, there's some random quango somewhere that's blocking them. There's some random judge that's blocking them. Well, just may as well just do away with democracy. Then. May as well just call it a day. Like, what's the point? Like, what's the point having anyone in if a quango is now making the reports or having an influence on the decision making, or some random judge is actually just stopping you from deporting people? Like, what's the point? So those quangos need to go. The judges need to go. We need to close the borders, and we need to basically spend all the money we've been sending abroad into the UK. The education, the indoctrination, I mean, it's always been like that in every country in the world to some extent. It's indoctrination. It would probably be an absolute utopia if we were able to figure that out as well. But for now, those would be my main things. Today's video was way longer than expected, but because I want to keep these down to 10 or 15 minutes. But when you speak about the United Kingdom, it's absolutely impossible. Because if I only told you a few issues, I'm going to be glazing over the topic and you won't fully get it. And there's probably way more issues than what I've just said that could be talked about. So I hope that gives you a general idea of what's going on. I hope you made it through to the end. If you did, well done. Thanks for listening. Catch you on the next one.